Alright guys, welcome back to another video. This video today is going to be a follow along, and we've got a lower back and hip decompression 10-minute routine. This is a super simple routine. It's one I like to go to, particularly in the morning times, if I just want to keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it, and I just want to kind of get straight to the point. Opening up the hips, decompressing the spine, getting some expansion into that rib cage. And this is really simple. We're essentially going to work two main exercises. We're going to repeat them and we're going to do it in a circuit fashion, okay? So we're going to work for 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, and then repeat. And we're just going to do 5 rounds on each, okay? So two main things that we're focusing on are decompressing the back of our hips and also decompressing the spine and starting to bring back more engagement, in particular into the thoracic spine. But we're using a prone position on the floor to start to realign the spine, create length, use the breath then to create expansion and create tension and contraction in the areas that we want. Because for most of us, when we get into our compressed posture, as you may have seen me talk about so often, our hips tend to get shifted forward in space. We tend to start to anterior tilt, we round the thoracic, and then we get our chin poking out here, and it throws our spine all out of whack. It puts a lot of excessive tension into areas where we don't really want it. And big muscles like our lats, our lower traps, these muscles that are so important for the integrity and stability around our spine as a foundation for movement, start to lose their leverage. So we're looking to restore that. So our first exercise is just going to be a simple rocker exercise here in this kneeling hinge position, and we're going to be pulsing into our hips here, just opening up, keeping that nice length and engagement throughout our spine. All I'm thinking about here is making my crown of my head and my tailbone nice and far away from each other without overextending. I'm trying to maintain my deep decompression breathing here, expanding the rib cage and just loading the pressure back into these hips at the back. Second exercise then is going to be a prone exercise, and what I'm going to do in this one is just explore different positions. So we're going to be in this position, maintaining a relatively decent rib cage pelvis stack, so I'm getting a slight posterior tuck on my pelvis, or imagining my belly button coming away from the floor in this position, okay? We're not just arching and dumping through the lower back. We're looking to use the breath, retracting those lower abs, and we can reach overhead. I'm finding some engagement. I'm thinking of lifting my sternum bone here off the ground. Crown of my head is long, and I'm finding engagement in that thoracic spine and coupling that then with my breathing, okay? So we're essentially going to do 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off for 5 rounds on our rockers, and then we're going to repeat that on our prone position there on the floor, playing around with different hand positions, and I'll talk you through that. But you can basically explore these in any way that you want. I'll give a couple of different options here as we're going through it. I'll do some single leg, some double leg stuff, different reaches, different positions with the hands on the floor. But the most important thing here is the breath and how we incorporate that into our rib cage and pelvis position. And then in particular in our hinge exercise, finding that pressure in the back of our hips, really trying to open up that hinge pattern in our bodies and start to restore that dominance to our back, chin and hips, okay? One important thing to know is that just before I did this, I did some myofascial release, and I focused primarily on my upper glutes, a little bit around the QLs in the spine as well, in that lower back area. So make sure that if you want, you can stop the video, incorporate some of that, and then go into this routine. But essentially this is what we teach in our 9-week Corrective Foundations program. We work on trying to improve tissue quality first, and then we start layering our breathing, our strength work, our positional work, our movement quality on top of that, okay? So stop the video, do a little bit of myofascial release if you feel you want it to help you open up some areas, and then hit play again and let's start getting after it. So I'm gonna set the timer here on my phone, and we're gonna go for 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off for 5 minutes at the beginning, and that's gonna be with our rockers. And then we are going to go into our prone position from there, okay? So we're gonna hear the sound on the timer, and you can just follow along as we go. So, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and it's 40 seconds on with my rockers. I'm just maintaining, like I said, that length in my spine, finding pressure in the back of my hips here, and press, and think of like prising into that on the back. I'm kind of manipulating, playing around with my center of mass and kind of like looking forward over the edge of a cliff here, and it allows me to sit back more into my hips. But explore what feels good for you here. Keep it nice and active down through these lower legs into the floor. I'm maintaining that nice length in the spine. Sternum is nice and tall. Nice engagement on the thoracic. And we have another 4, 3, 2, and 1. And that's our first round done. And again, I like to kind of explore this around. I did both legs at the same time there. Now I'm going to kind of bias more to my left side. Next one I'll bias more to my right. And how I'm basically going to do that is just by shifting my head over my foot or over my hip on that side, and then getting lighter on this non-working leg side. So if I sit back, I'm going to find my pressure in my left hip more, driving down through this left outside lower leg, left foot into the floor, and just sitting back into that pressure, exploring different areas of the hip. A really important part of this decompression work, of this kind of corrective work and doing it on a maintenance type basis, is to explore. We try to teach people the principles, but then the key thing that you need to focus on is really exploring what works for you, because you're never going to reach a point, and that's that. So that was biasing the left side there. You're never going to really get to this place where you've solved the equation, solved the problem. You're always going to be able to find things for your body, areas that you can load into more, areas that need a little bit more of that decompression. Those lines of tension. We're ready to go again on my right side. So now I'm biasing into that right side. If I show you from the front, I'm sitting back, sitting on my right side and pressurizing down into the back of this hip, and just kind of letting the weight off of this left side as much as I can. But there's always areas to explore, new lines of tension to explore, new areas to be opened up. And that's part of the beauty of it, but it's why the journey never really stops. And I always encourage people never to think of a program as like a 5-week program, a 6-week program, or whatever the length is. The reason our Corrective Foundations program is a 9-week program is because we spend 9 weeks giving you the tools, and you apply the tools, you learn the concepts, you learn the skills, and then you apply that into your life from there on. We show you how you can integrate it. We give you personalized feedback on your movement assessments to help you do that. I'm going to go back to both legs again. So I'll pull some back here, finding my pressure in the back of my hip, and I'm sitting back into it. Again, I'm maintaining that length through my spine. I'm not overly extending through my lower back, but I'm keeping this sternum bone high, and I have that engagement on the thoracic as well as some extension in the lumbar, but not too excessive. I'm kind of leaning forward a little bit more. It helps me find a little bit more pressure versus like sitting here, that's a little bit more quad. If I sit forward, it forces me to sit back into my hips. So another 7. And I'm maintaining my decompression breathing here. And then I relax. And we have one more set on this hip decompression. Then we're going to go into the prone on the floor for that spinal decompression. That rib cage, pelvis stacking, starting to expose our bodies to what that feels like. Getting ourselves out of this pattern and getting us into this nice, tall, stacked, relaxed pattern, an effortless posture. That's what we're going for. But effortless posture means we're not like trying to hold a certain posture. It means our body is now able to default into more efficient, more optimal positions because we've trained it to do that. We've shown it a new resting point and a new point where it feels comfortable, and now our bodies recognize that that is a more optimal place from an efficiency standpoint to rest in. So another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming all the way out. Relax for a second. That is our 5 rounds on the hip decompression. And again, you can add more time, you can add more sets. You can do 10 minutes only on that if you want, whatever it is you want to work on. I'm just giving you an example here of a simple session, 10 minutes in the morning to really decompress the body and get you started for the day, okay? So now we're going to go to our prone position. Again, tops of my toes are on the ground. I'm maintaining a little posterior tuck in the pelvis, so my belly button, I imagine, slightly pulling it away from the ground here, but I'm not squeezing the glutes. You want the glutes to be nice and relaxed. From here, we can start with hands by the side, and all we're going to do is lift the nose and the chin, or think of like your throat lifting away from the floor, thinking of trying to lift that sternum elevated up in front. And again, we only want to try find some big engagement in that thoracic. We can get some extension in the lumbars, but we don't want to just arch through our lower back here, okay? So you're trying to find some engagement in the thoracic, and we're going to breathe in this position and hold. So let's go for 40 seconds, and I'll show you some variations. So first one, hands are just here for support, and I'm only using them as little as I need. Full exhale. Expanding into that rib cage as I inhale. And trying to find that thoracic engagement, nice and strong. I'm going to take my hands off the floor. We're not cranking our neck, we're just thinking of showing the crown of our head nice and long in front, really lifting from that sternum and trying to get that even extension through the spine and through that back chain. Again, not dumping it all into our lower back. Want to feel even engagement throughout the muscles on our back, but predominantly that thoracic spine. Think like those lower traps, that kind of area of our back, okay? Next one, I'm gonna go hands overhead. So my fingertips can be on the ground, or I can lift them up, but we're just gonna work in this, like, think of it like a wide grip on a pull-up bar. Find your engagement and breathe. The hard thing to do here is to breathe. Most people will just want to hold their breath and brace, but we want to use the breath to create strength, to create pressure. Fingertips can be on the ground lightly. We're not relying on them, we're not like driving our hands in, but they can provide us with a little bit of support. And relax. I'm gonna go one more in that overhead position. I find that one a nice challenging position. If that's a little bit too much for you, you can do hands to the side here and just, again, lifting through that sternum and then lifting the hands as high as we can. 3, 2, 1, hands overhead again. I'll do less talking on this one. If you're feeling excessive pinching or discomfort in your lower back, maybe just drop the sternum a little bit. You're probably trying to extend too much. This isn't about how far we can get away from the ground. This is about the quality of the contractions and tension we can create. And relax. This next one, I'm going to play around with just a little bit of movement. So I'm going to aim to maintain that extension, and I'm going to play around with alternating reaches here in this position. So I'm closing down on one side, contracting, and I'm reaching nice and big on the opposite side. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Nice and slow and controlled. As I bring my arm down, I'm thinking of bringing that elbow towards my hip. It doesn't have to reach it, but that's my intent. Opposite side, I'm actively reaching long. And again, breathing throughout. Belly button is pulled away, retracted from the floor ever so slightly. Slight posterior tuck on the pelvis. And this little bit of dynamic movement adds a nice layer. Challenge. Relax. So we've got one more after this. Again, feel free to play around with whatever variation you like. You can do hands overhead, arms can be by the side, you can do dynamic, hands can be out like this. Find one that works for you and stick with that and master it and get strong at it. That's what's most important. So for this one, I'm going to play around with just a few little pulses in a couple of different positions. So I've got my wide overhead here, out to the side, a couple of little pulses. Check in with your rib cage, pelvis alignment. Are you still maintaining it? Are you still breathing? You're gonna reach nice and low. A Superman position. Thinking of lifting from those shoulder blades rather than lifting from my hands. Drive the movement from the spine, from those muscles on the back of the rib cage. And relax. Whew. 5 rounds on that is not easy. If you find that engagement in the right places, particularly around that thoracic, you're going to feel a lot of work going on between the shoulder blades, that mid back, and even up towards the neck. But we don't want to be overly cranking through our neck. And there we're done. But you may feel some tension in the neck, but predominantly we're trying to drive the movement in this prone position from that lift of the sternum, okay? And there's a couple of really important things that we want to focus on when we're in these positions. Number one is our breath, using our decompression breathing, getting that expansion into the rib cage, finding tension in the lower abs as we exhale so that we create that nice stability through our transverse abdominis and those lower abs. Second thing is our rib cage pelvis stack. Okay, we want to use the breath to help us actually get ourselves into those nice stacked positions of our rib cage and pelvis so that we create good intra-abdominal pressure, and that creates our platform and foundation for our body to move off of. Obviously we've done our MFR before this, like I mentioned. It's a really powerful way to get a little bit more out of something like our hinge movements here, the pulses. If we open up the back of the hips a little bit more first, if we've got restriction there, it really helps us get into the back of those hips and the tissue back there. And these are the really key fundamental techniques that we want to incorporate in these positions and in other corrective type positions. And I've not gone into those in detail here, but we cover all of those and we teach you step by step everything you need to be able to master those skills of breathing, of ribcage pelvis stacking, of thoracic extension. It's a big thing that a lot of people struggle with, of hinging, loading back into the hips, decompressing that space in the posterior pelvis. All of these things we teach you in more detail in our 9-week Corrective Foundations program. And these are the principles that we integrate here into our corrective work, and we try to integrate into the next stages of our journey along this process, where we start to go into like some corrective strengthening work. We start layering strength, we start layering external load, and then that's taking us on the road to becoming more resilient to injury, okay? And moving without pain and setting ourselves up for a life that is pain-free, for a life where we can enjoy doing the activities we love without being held back by injury, restrictions, pain, and that fear of another injury happening. So if you want to check out the first steps of that, our fully guided program, 9-week Corrective Foundations, you can check that out below. But other than that, guys, that's it for today. That is our 10-minute hip and spine decompression routine. I would recommend working with this on a daily basis. I really like to do this in the morning, and the morning time seems to work very well for most people within our Corrective Foundations program. It's a really good time to get in and get this stuff done and set yourself up for the day. So if you like this, guys, leave a comment below, let us know what you thought. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I will chat to you guys very, very soon.